On this episode, my dear friend and business partner, Matt Higgins, stops by. Also, he's about to be a shark. Hey everybody, this is Gary Vaynerchuk, and this is episode 297 of the Ask GaryVee show. And I'm super excited because, has AJ been on this show? No. All right, so this is literally probably the person I'm most closest to that I've ever done a show with. My business partner over the last decade. We'll get into that in a minute. But Matt Higgins is here. A couple things that are exciting about this episode. Number one, he looks better than ever, which makes sense because he's on this incredible publicity spree because he is now a shark on one of the most famous shows in business, period. Are you wearing shark socks? I see it, Matt. Guest star of Shark Tank this year. Very much well-deserved. I'm gonna let him tell you his origin story because that's what we do with every guest here, but it intertwines very much with my career as well, and I think a lot of you will enjoy it. And really where I wanna go, because we're both here, I think knowing my audience, I wanna do as many calls as possible, which is something we haven't been doing as much. So I'm gonna let Matt kind of establish comic book number one, tell his kind of origin story. Then I'll throw out a couple questions and then we'll get into the phone call. So Facebook, I know you're watching live right now. Put in your phone call and your question, especially as Matt starts telling his story. I think it will make sense. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good to see you, brother.
Thanks for having me,
great.
Gary. It's awesome.
Cool. Take it away.
All right.
Who are you?
Who am I?
Yes.
Grew up the whole bit.
I tend to like those things.
All right. I grew up in Bayside, Queens.
Okay.
On Springfield Boulevard. Born at Flushing Hospital. Hustled in Queens my whole early life. First job, McDonald's. Actually, first job selling flowers on the street. Second job, McDonald's. I grew up real poor, taking care of my. You know this, but I'm telling you too, like you don't.
I don't.
To the world.
I do not know.
And I grew up single mother who was amazing and taking care of four miserable boys.
Yes.
And
what boy were you?
I was the youngest. And sometimes shit rolls downhill, so it landed in my lap. But grew up really poor. I know everybody says that, but government cheese in the refrigerator and the whole bit. Church pantries on Sunday. And my mother was amazing and always trying to get ahead in life, but everything for me was about how do I get out of this situation as quickly as humanly possible.
Yes.
And
how quickly did you figure that out, you think? Like when you reconcile that, like it's been interesting to me how many things I've realized about myself as I've talked about myself, done speeches, things of that nature. Attention was the big one. Like, holy crap, I didn't run lemonade stands. I watched cars to watch people. Holy crap, I wasted the first 3 hours of a baseball card show to watch what people were doing with their attention. That is something I didn't know until like 4 or 5 or 6 years ago. Now that you're talking about your career and things of that nature, when do you think at this point, right this minute, when do you think you woke up and said, holy crap, I got to get out of this?
I think when I was 10 years old, I remember just something happened where it seemed like really desperate and had an epiphany that if things don't go in a different direction, they're not going to end well. I remember.
What year were you born?
I was 1974.
Got it. So in 84.
84.
Okay.
A bunch of things happened in my mother's life, and she was sick.
Like,
she was very depressed and just sick. And
did she date other guys?
No.
Okay.
We grew up.
Like
that's interesting you asked that.
Yeah,
we were kind of a unit, and for some reason around that time, I remember I had been in a bus accident, and I was standing at the ocean, looking at the waves, thinking like, okay, this is not going to end well, and I think that was the beginning of me being a little bit of a loner. And deciding like I need to figure out a way out of this situation.
And when you say loner, this is just an interesting question.
Yeah.
This is what's fun about this. I've never really gone in some of these places with you.
I'm getting uncomfortable.
I know you should because I'm about to go there. Loner as in like, okay, not that I don't want to be like my brothers, but when you're number 4 and I'm listening, and I've never thought about it this way, but we're putting on a show here. You want to be on a show? Here you go. Do you mean loner like? And by the way, it's interesting because I have a version of this too, which is like, and I've had such good things that I'm the old. It's just like sometimes you just go inside your head.
Yeah, actually, now I've never thought about what do I mean by that word, but now I do. We used to go to the emergency room all the time for healthcare because we had nothing, and that became kind of our doctor. And it's the time when I started realizing that these were intractable problems. You don't use that word at 10, but like there's no answer to this. And that you have to kind of take matters into your own hands. Not like I had the answers at 10, but I definitely had the problem at 10.
Yes.
And then something happened back to pattern recognition. When I was a kid, My mother actually got a GED as an adult, and she was able to go to college. She did really well. And around the time that I was in 8th grade, I said, wait a second. If she was able to go to college as an adult, kind of by accident, if I did this on purpose, then I can get out of this situation even faster.
And listen, I grew up the same time as you did. Like school became a gateway out.
Yeah, school became a gateway out, but also unnecessary. Like it just didn't add up. Like, okay, I have a desperate circumstance. We're very poor. We need to move quickly. She's getting progressively, sicker, right? And then there's this side path, which is if you actually drop out at 16 and do well enough, you can go to college. So that was probably the first most unconventional decision I ever made that everybody said you're crazy, like you're throwing it away. And when I say loner, it's when I started to cultivate this voice in my head, like, hey, wait a minute, I have a plan and I don't need anybody else to agree to it because they're not looking at the apartment. And
they don't have context.
They don't have context. You always say it all the time, which I love. Nobody had a window. First of all, when you're a kid, you're trying to wear Jordache jeans or Guess. I'm dating myself, right? You're doing everything you can to conceal your shame.
Sure.
So when everybody was saying you're insane to drop out of high school, I was like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, when I made the move and I dropped out of Cardozo High School at 16, and I was like, okay, now you got to.
Which is, right now, if people drop out of high school, like in 2018, 2019, and they've got a plan, there's a level of like, oh, that might be an entrepreneur that's going to go do something. When you and I were growing up, anybody that dropped out of high school was 100% certified loser.
Oh, forget about it. Right.
Yes.
And it's funny that when I remember.
Like you even just went back to like New York talk. Just
when I
using forget about it.
You did. Well, when I did I
It like sent
about
you back there. That was the most Queensy
Keeping it
thing.
real.
I've been hanging with you for a decade.
Queens.
That was the most Queensy. Like it literally just, that moment just put you back in there.
So I remember, or now I'm going to take it real. I remember sitting on the steps. First of all, you have to return all your textbooks when you drop out of high school, back then at least. So you have to go class to class. And I remember walking into my science teacher's class, Mr. Rosenthal, if you're out there, it's stuck. And I went to bring back my textbook, and he goes, Higgins, like, what a shame, what a waste.
Yeah.
And he goes, I remember he told me, I'll see you at McDonald's.
Yeah.
And at the time, I did work at McDonald's. I said, well, if you see me at McDonald's, because I own it. That was all talk.
Yeah,
I went out, sat on the steps of Cardozo, smoked a butt because now I wasn't
Yeah.
going to get picked up by the Truman police at that point.
Yeah.
And I thought, damn, like that was a ballsy move.
And so what happened next?
I executed.
Okay.
I said, I
So
know
what
I'm
did
right.
you do?
I started taking GD classes for like a week, and I was like, all right, this is not for me.
Okay.
You're allowed to take it on standby if you show up. I went to Springfield Gardens High School in Queens. I went on standby, took my GD, took the SATs a couple of weeks later, and within 3 months, I enrolled in Queens College at 16.
Okay.
Then, just to prove a point, went back to my prom at high school as president of the debate team. And I was like, how do you like them apples, to date myself?
Yeah.
So that's it. To me, that's probably one of the most important things that ever happened in my life. Because everything you talk about, you don't have context, so I'm not going to listen to you because your opinion doesn't matter because you don't have the full story.
I mean, that is just...
Right? I have a plan. And if I have a plan and I believe in the plan, that's more important than anything else that's going on, right? And I have pattern recognition skills that maybe set me apart. So trust in them, right? That they can get you where you want to go. And to your point about how you get judged by being a dropout, I knew that I'm going to have to make sure that the rest of the track record can overcome that one decision. So I have to spend...
It's like being a 6th round pick.
Right.
You're judged for being a 6th round pick until you go to the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. So it's funny you said law school was my Hall of Fame. Because I was like, so I came up with this, all right, I'll go to law school.
Makes sense.
I'll do I was on law review. It was, top of the class, whatever. I went through 4 years of law school at night. And as soon as I graduated, I never even took the bar. I said, okay, well, I cleaned that up.
And then what happened?
Well, all in between,
Yeah.
my career was taken off, right? So because I dropped out early, got great jobs early.
Like what? I actually am interested.
You don't know? So
No.
while I was doing that, I was working as a reporter for the Queens Tribune.
Okay.
And people would send me their problems. I created a little column called the Trib Action Desk.
Okay.
And they would send me their problems about things they were doing. And they were mundane issues.
Yes.
But I would take the mundane and make it very interesting.
Yes.
Some guy in Hamilton Beach, Queens, when the city had built a bridge next to his house. And the bridge had started destroying the foundation. And he had an animal menagerie, and it ended up blowing up in New York papers. Like things like, I would take these crazy stories. I drive around my little Nissan Maxima with the broken radiator like all night long.
And who took note of that? And created your next
a lot of
opportunity?
different reporters. Daily News did a big profile on me, called me a real action hero, and it started happening. And then ultimately, Mayor Giuliani gave me my first kind of big job.
What were you doing before Giuliani?
I was doing the
Didn't you do like a .com thing, like Cosmo? What
that was
it?
in between.
Yeah, what was that?
It was Cosmo.
Yeah,
K-O-Z-M-O.
yeah.
Cosmo.
Yeah.
Still amazing.
You were worth $1 trillion.
I was worth
at
$1
one point.
trillion. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I was so rich. 10,000 options.
Help me right here, because this is where all the kids, like, I keep, I just can't wait for the world to melt.
Yeah.
As you know.
I don't like when you say that.
I know. You get worried. I get pumped.
Together.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know.
right.
But
I still have like PTSD.
Yes, I
from
know.
the
But
mattress.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
Because I'm in the
weirdly.
trenches.
Well, I think you just want to get back there.
I'm like, no, I don't want to lose it. I want to navigate the storm.
Yeah.
And
You like the big reveal. I'm done with the big reveal.
No, I get it. But here's the good news in this scenario. You got your own other things, but you'll be able to watch. I'll be like, just hang right here.
It's
Watch
okay,
this.
Matt. All right.
Right now, a lot of kids are either doing well. I was at a conference yesterday, and I talked where it's a lot of videographers, a lot of vloggers, a lot of influencers. I'm like, guys, you do understand the $39,000 you're making this year in brand deals on Instagram photos goes away when the economy gets tight, because Coca-Cola gets tight.
It's cruel of you to tell them what's happening.
No, it's the single best thing I can
a good
do,
point.
right? Because everybody's living in fantasy
That's
land.
true.
You lived in fantasy land with your Cosmo stock and already thought about what was going to happen, and it all went to dead zero.
Well, that's what I was. I learned something at Cosmo. That was so
Let's go.
important, right?
Teach.
So I go to Cosmo. Okay, I will. Cosmo, one of the biggest internet companies at the time,
Yep.
raised $300 million in 1998. It would deliver everything to you in under an hour. It's actually an amazing company,
last
right?
mile.
Last mile, 10,000 employees, 10 cities.
By the way, here we are 20 years later, still no last mile.
Still no last mile.
Another thing people need to learn.
And interesting that the business could have been profitable at an average order of $24, 2.5 orders per hour, and there was no smartphone making those orders.
That's right.
Anyway, it's
Yeah.
burned into my head.
Right.
But what was interesting, the signs were everywhere towards the end. And I remember thinking, we got somebody joined the company as our CFO at the time, and he had a
And what were you doing?
I was director of comms.
Keep going.
So I did the road show,
Right,
the whole
yep.
bit. So I won't say who the person was, but they quit this massive job at a moment when I'm saying the signs are everywhere that we are about to go under, and was completely seduced by
The
all
upside
the
of
options.
the equity.
And here I am. Giuliani offers me a chance to become the youngest press secretary in New York City history, for which I'd have to leave my $1 trillion of options. And I had to.
None of it was vested?
Well, no, none of it was vested, right? It was sort of, locked up. But I had to here's this person who's got this big job making this decision to join the company at the exact moment that I feel like we're only weeks away from total imminent, decline. And yet I have to decide to walk away. So I made the right choice. I made more money selling the gear on eBay, than I did, at the company with the options. Yeah. But the point of that story is trust your instincts. Like don't outsource your judgment to somebody who has less
What
facts.
was the max value of all of those stocks on paper?
I mean, a few $1 million.
Right.
I mean, I never tried to get too close to it because it never.
But
it
that
never
was
happened.
like,
no, I won.
Right.
I was rich.
And then went zero.
Yeah, it went to zero.
It's going to happen to so many people soon.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be an interesting. What's interesting about the collapse of 01 and 07 was there wasn't a maturity of social media. What I'm unbelievably worried about, and why I keep talking about it, and I will continue to talk about it basically every day, is we have a bunch of people that are posturing of success on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter every single day.
Right.
And 99% are going to lose because they're over leveraged, which means that they're going to have to deal with the fact of that judgment at scale. Like you weren't posting. Like we can't look at your Twitter from 2002 talking big game at being at Nobu, right? Mm-hmm. Because you had $2 million in the bank as a 20-something in stock. But that's what was happening.
But do you think the cycle's the same now? I remember companies were getting
100%.
funded. Pets.com,
Yes,
all
I
this
do
was
think
about
it's the
mind
same.
share. Are people getting funded on mind
I
share?
do believe people that are claiming on Instagram right now that they're building the next Supreme or the next Instagram, and every picture during the summer is in the Hamptons on a swan when they go work at Chase in 2 years because they're out of business. That's going to hurt. Yes, I do. I think that is a problem.
Okay, what are we going to do when that all collapses?
Well, we're going to make a lot of money because we're preparing for that and are building a machine. VaynerMedia is built in a way, like all the margin I don't deliver is predicated on capturing the growth when Poland Springs goes from $100 million to a $29 million budget, and they have to make that work.
Yeah.
So, But it's not like I'm like he being secretive. I'm telling people what I'm doing. My biggest advice always to my audience is watch what I'm doing, not what I'm saying. Because then you'll really know what the hell's going on. What's going on? I'm eating crow running this goddamn company because I know how fruitful it will be when inevitability.
Well, that's what I always say. I always think the one thing that you don't give enough insight into is just how hard you work as an operator, how much you spend all your time, and how right you are on trends, business trends, right? About what an incredible insight, not to blow smoke, but you are. And from that first time we met in a bagel store, Right, that's what I saw.
Why don't we
that
tell
Gary.
that story? I think so.
on, tell
So let's go quickly because I want to get.
Yeah, I
into
get bored of the
you
bio
go-
story.
Giuliani, you're with him during 9/11. That's an episode in itself.
Yeah.
I mean that you should be putting content about you should put it for your like just for generations in the future. It's just interesting stuff. Like to be at the hip of Mayor Giuliani during 9/11 is one of the unique lives in America.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Like it's yours, thus it's hard for you to see it. And I don't know how big that team was or wasn't, but you're talking about 40, 20, help me here, jump in, 1927. What was the core circle of Team Giuliani on 9/11?
It's probably, it's 25 people. I was doing
Think
press,
about that. Out of 300 plus Americans who, and there's some young people who didn't, it's crazy now to think about how many people, 9/11, what are you talking, 17 years ago? 17 years ago, man, it's crazy that 22-year-olds don't know.
Yeah, they don't.
How old are you?
24.
It starts to take on
you
a
were
Pearl
here?
Harbor
And
quality.
we're- how old are you? But in Houston, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure. Like you were in America on 9/11.
Yes, I was.
What do you think about when I say 9/11? Do you remember anything?
Hardly anything.
How old are you?
34.
Man, you look great. Brooke, how old are you? 22. You don't.
What do you?
But how?
On the TV.
But like for you, 9/11 is like
Is it like Pearl Harbor?
it's like
or
Vietnam.
Is it
to
like
me.
Vietnam?
It means
or?
nothing. Like it meant something. But you're 5.
My grandmother was in the room. She was freaking out.
Right. So that's what you remember.
Yeah.
But like it's crazy. Anyway, nonetheless.
Yeah.
For most, like it's crazy to think that you were so close to like probably the signature moment of the majority of people's lives in American history.
I was standing outside when the first building collapsed.
Yep.
Right. We were setting up to do. One thing about Giuliani, he handled a crisis by letting everybody know that it was under control and that he was
got
there.
this.
So right before the first tower collapsed, I was standing outside setting up a press conference so that he could do what he normally would do, which
Yep.
is say that we've got this.
Yep.
And then it just was so clear that this is a war zone. This is
yeah.
unlike. But in the beginning, you remember it
Yeah.
wasn't clear.
Yeah, it was like
the
a
first
plane
report.
hit.
Plane
Yeah.
hit. Was it a Cessna?
Yeah.
And so for me, that began a 2-year chapter, right? Because I was there from that moment, stayed with Giuliani as press secretary, managing the global response to the attack, which became its own obligation, right? How do we telegraph what happened here?
Yeah.
How do we enlist the support of the world?
Yeah.
And then I became the first employee of the rebuilding. So I arrived with a cell phone and a massive federal budget with a group of people to start rebuilding. I spent 2 years of my life. I moved down there. I would sit on the roof of my building on Chambers Street and write speeches, while everything was still, going on. So it was just basically, that day really lasted for 2 years. That's why it's hard for me to tell the story because it's still kind of a blur. Like I don't totally understand it. I haven't gone back and looked at all the footage and understood the impact.
And then what
everything
happened
I've seen.
next?
So I did 2 years. I decided I was going to see it through until we had a design for the memorial and the Freedom Tower. And then I transitioned to the New York Jets.
That's right.
That's where I met.
So how did that
Gary
happen?
Vee. The New York Jets were looking for somebody to help them build a stadium.
Yes.
Because they never had
Here.
one of their own.
Literally,
here in New York.
No.
Oh yeah, here.
Here.
All right, here.
Like
Yeah.
literally
That's
here.
right. Here.
This Hudson Yards project.
So we waged an epic,
Comms
death
war.
battle, right? Like spent both sides probably almost $100 million fighting. Cablevision
Yep.
went to war to stop it. Thank you.
Madison Square Garden.
Right, exactly. So that lasted probably 2 years, and ultimately
How close did it get?
it got really close. We had a majority of the city council supporting it.
For everybody who's listening,
yeah.
this is obviously very emotional for me.
Yeah.
The Jets
Yeah, for
wanted
you.
to build way more for me than you. I don't give a shit how involved you were. Emotionally?
Emotionally,
Way more
yes.
me.
This part is emotional
Yeah,
for me.
fair enough, but we are literally the office building we're in right now is in the spot that was battled over in the early 2000s about where the New York Jets almost built their stadium, which would have been in Manhattan. And as somebody who's a Jets fan in a town that is very Giants out, you can imagine having the actual stadium in Manhattan was obviously very attractive. Now, I'm a Jersey boy and I love that it's out there, but it was an attractive proposition of the Jets being
And it was
the
going to be home
Manhattan.
to the Olympics.
That's exactly
Remember,
right.
we
Yep,
and they
of
killed
course.
the Olympic bid. So it's so hard to explain the convoluted political process, but it was a war of television ads and tens of thousands of union
Oh, it was
representatives.
crazy.
It was crazy, and I ran that fight. And then it died on the steps of the Capitol when Shelley Silver, who's now going to jail.
Is that true?
Yeah. Shelley's been indicted,
know-
convicted,
I know.
and I'll see the bitterness last.
Yes,
it's
yeah, of course.
I'm gonna hold on to it.
Yep.
And we lost.
Yep.
Right. So then And the reason why the Jets chose me, they needed somebody who had that background in
get
city
it.
politics and whatnot.
And what
then
did you come in as?
I come in as like VP of strategy,
And then what?
and then every other job.
Yep.
Eventually ending up as EVP of the business, running
Yep.
the business of the team.
Yes.
Right? Which
How
is
long were
we
you?
went.
How long were you with the Jets?
8 years.
Man, that's
I
that's a
started
real run.
I mean, I started the Jets when I was probably 28.
And Hofstra was headquarters. Well, headquarters in Manhattan.
I was in Manhattan. They were out in Hofstra,
Right.
and
Then
then
moved to Florida
and then
Park.
I ran that process.
Yep.
Right. So I ran the process to figure out how to build a practice facility in New Jersey.
Yep.
And then relocated to New Jersey out of anger.
And Matt, we met because what?
We met because I was trying to sell you a suite. You were like,
I know.
we have this like pinup at the team at the time. Who could afford a suite but isn't buying one?
Right, wine library.
Yeah, and you were like, you were target number.
target.
And that bagel store was a target rich environment, right? So I had to come out.
Such
and
an
see.
unbelievable story. Really quick, because I want to get into other parts of his career. And it's about Matt. I want to get into
I
the
like
Shark
telling
Tank
the
stuff.
story, though.
But so
It's
go ahead.
interesting.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So no, because it's the Genesis story, right? So
I'm running Wine Library. This is as me and AJ are plotting VaynerMedia, but nobody knows. So I'm actively just running Wine Library. I get an email from the Jets, which always gets responded to right away. And the president wants to meet you. And I'm like, hell yes. And we went to Bagel Smith on Springfield Avenue
called?
in Springfield, New Jersey.
That's
yes.
right. That's right. So I'm going to sell Gary a suite, which is not something that you love to do as an executive,
Yeah.
right? It's a hard thing to sort of sell. I go to meet Gary. Jeff Fernandez had asked
Yes.
us to do it, right? I go to meet Gary in a bagel store, and then the first 10 minutes, I'm listening to you with your frenetic energy and your predictions, and I didn't follow you on Wine Library. But I always think about the second 10 minutes, right? Because that's when all this magic happened. Gary started telling all these stories about how the world was going to unfold. And to give you an example, I started making predictions that, Matt, in another couple of years, everything is going to be about social media and digital content, but more importantly, content is going to be democratized and everybody is going to become their own content publisher. And because of that, these corporations are like big battleships. They're not going to be able to manage that in-house. They're never going to have enough sophistication to figure out how to go ahead and tap into that. And there's going to be a new type of agency that'll be born that will figure out how to manage that. And I'm the guy to do it. It's interesting, sounds legit. And my brother AJ and I are gonna, as soon as he graduates, because he's 12, we're gonna launch this big company, and I'm gonna be a billionaire. I'm gonna buy the Jets. You fucking tell everybody I'm gonna buy the Jets, right? So, and going back to pattern recognition, smoking the butt on high school,
Yes.
right? Over those years, I started trusting myself that when I see a pattern playing out and I see somebody speaking the truth who's got the courage to get it right, and it resonates with me, I don't care if anybody else in the world knows if they're right or not. So within those second 10 minutes, I was like, oh, Gary is sitting in the stream of information and data. He's opening himself up to the world and is starting to see the patterns. And he's right. And I don't know if you remember too, you started predicting, I think Facebook is going to be mad. All the things that you...
I wish I was recording that meeting.
Yeah, no,
It would look really good on me right now.
It really would, yeah. So and that's why I tell everybody, and it's cliche, but you know where the puck is going. So at that meeting, we did a deal, right?
Yep.
There were a couple things. Take a Jets player who doesn't deserve to be famous and make him Twitter famous.
That's right.
That was mission number one. And if you succeed, we'll give you 4 Jets tickets to become the first client. I know others claim this,
Yep.
but I'm going to claim I am the first client.
Yep.
And 2, make me the guy in sports who gets it so I can get a huge job, right? Total self-dealing.
Check. And check.
And none of those early articles do I credit Gary, which I
No,
think you even
which I
framed
love.
one of them so you give me shit about
Yeah,
it, right?
I
It was
do.
the journal article.
Yes.
So
Matt Higgins mastermized social media rise of the New York Jets.
Exactly.
And I'm reading it because I'm
It's
somewhere,
even in-
I'm somewhere in here. Nope, not in there.
by the way, even in Fast Company, I pulled up an article today.
I love
so,
it.
but remember we had dinner in Chatham with Kerry Rhodes. Kerry Rhodes,
Yep.
Mr. Hollywood.
One of my favorite players of all time.
And you made him.
Massive. Kerry Rhodes at one point was literally the second or first most followed football player as a safety for the New York Jets on Twitter. The Jets were the number 1 team followed on Twitter in 2009 and 10, period. And so, yeah, we did a lot of great work. It was a lot of fun. I remember my first meeting, I was like, we just drafted Sanchez. And I was like, I don't need, because sports marketing is like market around the stars. And I was like, I want to make the punter famous. I want to make the people that cover coverage on special teams. And I still believe that to this day. I still believe to this second, the biggest vulnerability in sports marketing is they give too much power to the individual athlete. And the athlete should be doing that. Everybody should be doing what they should be doing. But anyway, it was a great
but
run.
Remember how hard it was in those early days. Like you would get a cease and desist letter for marketing on MySpace.
Of course.
I remember I think 2009, I got a cease and desist letter from the NFL. Like you're not allowed to market on MySpace, right? So it wasn't easy to go ahead and players were still grappling with, am I allowed to use Twitter?
100%.
I mean, actually, not even grappling. It wasn't even allowed, right? So we were breaking down walls back in the day. Give ourselves credit.
And then your career transitioned again. And by the way, I don't think I've ever told you this story. I came to a Jets practice during preseason, and you said, "Hey, there's something brewing in my career." Yeah. And I remember thinking,
you remember that?
I remember very well.
Sideline.
And I remember thinking, no, Matt, I like you at the Jets.
Right. You're
I like the Jets. Don't leave. But you were right.
Yeah. No, I like you. I always had the desire to be an entrepreneur. Yep. And I had all those ideas that were percolating in my head. And I think you reach a tipping point, right? At 2:00 in the morning, like, I could run this. We were talking about creating a fund together. Gary's got all this great insight. If only we could monetize it. Jesse Darris, our partner in my PR firm, I knew that he needed to be running his own firm. Just all these ideas. And it reached a tipping point.
How long did Steve Ross, who now we're going to transition to, owner of the Dolphins, who brought you on board, how long was he courting you as an executive? Was that a quick courtship? I don't know this story.
I think I had made I was going through a lot of personal transitions in my life, and I had to make the decision, like, okay, if I don't transition out of this job, I'm never going to leave it. Like sometimes it's tough when you have a job that everybody in the world, wants, or a lot of people want. It's very hard to listen to your inner voice and say, that's great that this is the job you want, but I've run my course.
Yeah, I've been here 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years. And if, the office on the 50-yard line and the private plane and everything, very hard to let that go. So I made a decision. I was gonna transition. And when that got out there, that's when I started to have conversations with Steve.
Different people.
And Steve is a maverick. I mean, he's sitting in that room of NFL owners, and he's just of a different breed.
No question.
And he had all these ideas that he wanted to pursue around the team that resonated with me. And I had all these ideas that I wanted to put to work, and he supported it, right? I mean, in ways that are, looking back, are kind of breathtaking, right? And including becoming partners with you and building this huge international soccer tournament that we have, and drone racing, and on and on. But that was 6 years ago that we created RSE.
So to speed it up, and then we're going into Q&A. In the last 6 years that you created RSE, what are the highlights? So you start this company along with Steve.
I started a company with Steve.
You also become an executive on the Dolphin side, right?
And
so you were an employee on that side and executive.
Yeah, so the oversee the Dolphins on the business side, put in place a great team, but let it run itself. Sure. And we have an amazing CEO named Tom Garfinkel,
Right.
so that took care of itself.
Right.
But let's build an ecosystem around the team that could either help drive value or extract value from. Right.
Yep.
So some of the early deals, you were on that first PowerPoint. It's amazing looking at my first pitch deck.
Yes.
There were 4 ideas, and you were on that.
Yes.
And look at where we are.
Yep.
Jesse Darris was on that list.
Yep.
Creating an international soccer business was on that list because we're in Miami. Yep. Fast forward, we have the largest soccer tournament in the world. And I remember sitting with Steve at his desk about 3 months in, going through the pitch, and he's like, that's a lot of stuff. You sure you're going to do it? I was like, oh yeah, you'll see. We do it. So since then, what are the highlights? I think seeing in somebody something that maybe even they don't see in themselves yet, and extracting it and weaponizing. I love
Matt,
it.
Do you believe that Shark Tank, I'm jumping here a little bit, put you on because you've been so good at picking entrepreneurs and investing in them? And when I look at, and I feel like I am one, but then I think the chapter that you've had recently that has been more in the food space, and I think Jesse's a real maverick of a young entrepreneur too, but when I look at what you did with David Chang, or what you're doing in food seems to be more of a pattern of what you did with me. And then you did it within a genre of food.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
So I think
So give people context. The company's invested in whom, what companies?
Okay, so we're 4 spaces: sports and entertainment, drone racing, international soccer, huge tournament, food and lifestyle. So we incubated Resi together.
Yep.
David Chang is my partner. Milk Bar, and Pizza, Bluestone Lane, a bunch of different sort of large fast casual companies and fine
when
dining.
I look at the CEO of Bluestone,
Nick.
And Pizza, who's a real amazing talent.
Yeah,
David,
Pizza Profit.
I mean, these are the Bluestone guys, but they're dynamic in all different ways.
Yeah, they are. I think so. You asked why would Shark Tank want me on?
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's because
just because I know a lot of entrepreneurs are watching, and when you're on this season, I think it's super, it makes me, I'm so happy you're on because I think what they've done with guests, whether it's been Ashton or Saka or like they've gone for just Alex Rodriguez. There's been a lot of front-facing people.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? You're disproportionately the least famous guest shark.
Which I love. I always say my favorite comment, I think I sent this to you, when it was announced, somebody commented on ABC's page saying, but he only has 400 followers.
Yeah.
And I wrote back, I said, 401? Question mark.
That was almost as good as when I was on Planet of the Apps, and the article was, and in a new show, Apple's first original show, the guests are the judges are Gwyneth Paltrow, Will.i.am, Jessica Alba, and others.
And others. By the way, I'm showing up a lot in the promos, others too. Yeah. I've decided not to be offended because like you, I'm starting to love the big reveal.
100%.
So why did they put me on? I think my day job and my hobby is helping people transcend, because I was that kid that had all this potential and that had to break through in order to transcend to what I was meant to be. So for me, there's something magical about unlocking that butterfly that's in everybody.
When you pick entrepreneur, I apologize. Because I'm looking at the time and I want to get some calls in, so I apologize. Let me give an insight to the people that always get mad at me for interrupting. These are time slotted, unlike other people whose entire life is being a podcaster and they have unlimited time and they do post-production. We slot them in because we have busy peeps and we have to stay within them.
And we do this to each other all the time. So
that's true. Matt, when you've been wrong about entrepreneurs, because you've been betting on entrepreneurs over the last half decade plus pretty aggressively, and it is now becoming your brand. And inevitably, especially with the association with me, especially with Shark Tank, you are in for a decade of people reaching out and saying, I'm the next David Chang. Like, that's going to be your life, at least until you change it.
Right.
It is very clear for me from the outside.
Yep.
Because I think the thing that people will be...
I like that life.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting thing. Like, I think one thing, even if... I don't know if you guys are picking up on this nuance, and this is true with my dad and my brother, let alone a majority investor into my company, the key plug to the relationship. Matt will tell you that it is shocking how much and how little we actually talk business, right? Like, everyone's so busy. Yep. And just I'm the kind of entrepreneur that's not so detailed. Let's have a meeting every month to like review what's happening. But it's been fun for me to watch you go through this process the last 100 days in anticipation of Shark Tank. I'm like, wow, it is very clear what Matt's life is going to look like for the next half decade, which is people are just going to pitch him left and right of like, I'm the next entrepreneur that you should bet on. So to that point, when you've been wrong in the last 6 years, even if it's not a bet you made where you wanted to make the bet and you didn't because the price was too high or they didn't take your money, and then you got to watch her or him win or lose. When you've been wrong, why do you think you've been wrong?
It's the number one reason. There are minor reasons. Number one is when I thought that the power of the idea would eclipse whatever flaws are in the founder. It's when I decided to overlook the fact that the jockey doesn't have what it takes and say, well, the idea is so good.
The horse is so special.
Yeah, every mistake, I'm sure there are others. Every mistake has always been about the idea. The idea will eclipse the founder, and that's never true. It's always about the people.
That's really interesting you say that, because now that I was thinking that is what you said, because I've been very intrigued by this chapter in the food space, because I really personally from afar liked the bets.
Yeah.
And I do think they're different than the kind of things you were looking at, because we looked at a lot of stuff together when we had Vayner RCR Fund together. I do think there's a maturity in the way that you're picking jockeys.
Yeah. Well, I'm picking special first, right? I'm picking ideas that are potentially scalable, right? I don't want to pick something that could just be a couple of units. As you and I learned the hard way, small ideas and big ideas take the same exact amount of work. Yeah. It's an interesting secret of life, right? You would assume that there'd be a massive increase in work to make a big idea, same exact game, which is exciting because that means you can keep leveling up and do big stuff. But I'm backing special, backing scalable, and backing people who have the confidence and the humility to make it work, right? Because if you don't have humility, you'll never pivot. And if you don't have confidence, you'll never be comfortable to have humility, right?
I think that's
Sorry,
exactly
Want to take some calls?
Yeah, we're going to take some calls. But I think that's right. I think that contradiction of confidence and humility is something I talk a lot about. I believe in it.
Can I give a shout out to my wife, Sarah, who's over
That's fine.
That's all right.
Is she the confidence or the humility?
She's the whole package. That's why.
What are you?
I'm inadequate. She backfills.
Who's this? Michael.
This is Michael.
Michael, this is Gary Vaynerchuk. You're on the Ask Gary Vee show with Matt Higgins. How are you?
Outstanding. I cannot believe that I actually got the call in Hey, Matt, how's it going?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to hear you're outstanding.
So, my question.
Go ahead. We're here.
I've known each other for 3-4 years now.
Hold on. Brother, you chopped off for a second. Are you in a good... What's his name again? Michael, two things. One, your voice scared the shit out of everybody watching. When you were laughing, it was a very evil laugh. We're all very scared. But number two, you cut off when you asked your question. So ask it again, please.
So I said I was a big fan of both you, Gary, and I've known Matt for about 3-4 years now. So my
Awesome.
question is for Matt, when you acquire these companies or invest in these companies, what are you looking at? Are you looking for growth? Are you looking for future sale? What is your overall, as Gary would say, your macro approach?
Well, I'm a little different than a firm or some PE shop because I'm partnered with Steve Ross. So the philosophy is we don't worry about the exits. The exits will be a byproduct of success. We don't force our founders to do that. So we're looking for something that can be an inherently big business, maybe not in the first, version 1.0 of me, but certainly version 3.0 now, a big business, and that there is an inevitable path to exit, but we're not going to focus on it, right? So a business that could be sold, that could exit, but it's all about growth. It's not about distributing cash flow. It's not about, financial engineering and Excel sheets, as Gary says. It's just about growth.
Excellent. And the final question I have, and I know not a lot of questions, but final question is, how is a person that runs probably and owns probably one of the most storied franchises of the Dolphins partner with the most craziest Jets fan out there?
Well, I've been looking to sell our stake in the firm for a long time, so that's the answer is I'm raising my profile to find a buyer. Well, we just don't talk about it. I mean, I don't razz him about it because he's so emotional. I do not give him shit because it's an area I don't want to go to.
And I don't say too much either because one time when I was getting on Ross real heavy in a meeting, he looked at me and he said, "You're a fan of the team. I own the team." And that hurt.
Yeah, that was pretty
and
epic.
I pretty much decided I would never really go anywhere again. He did to me what I like to do to others. So yeah, it's like 100%.
But to give some insight, so when we play the Jets, right? Gary won't even come over and say hello, right? Like you won't even. It's like what do you work there? I mean, what's you're pretty. You won't even shake our hands in the sidelines.
Yeah, Steve always goes, "You're tribal." He always yells at me, "You're tribal." I mean, look, one of the worst, if not the single worst business decision in my life, financially.
I offered you.
Yeah. Steve and Matt, in our transaction of them investing in Vayner, there was equity in the Dolphins offered, and we went a different route. We had the soccer idea, then we did the fund, but the multiple of the growth, like I lost tens of millions of dollars in not by being a Jets fan.
Big mistake, as they would say in Pretty Woman.
Well, I hope to see you on the Jets. Are you coming down for the Jets Dolphins game?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm in LA doing something, so I'm on a red eye meeting right now with I actually had that conversation today. I would say very likely. Yes.
You could
I guess he's not taking Ross one with you, Matt, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Matt will be there.
Yep,
Thanks for calling, brother. Thanks for calling.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that what's super interesting about the jockey horse conversation is that it is very clear to me I've not been doing much investing. We did our fund.
Yeah.
I've been kind of very head down in building the Vayner machine. I think things are overvalued in general for me for early stage. I think some of the later stuff is a little more interesting. But the jockey is where I'm at.
And I think the next phase that you and I will go through together is control. Like if,
100%.
If I'm backing GaryVee directly, it's
100%.
much more interesting than
So
a term
much more.
sheet to some anonymous company.
Nathan, 100%.
Right.
Like I'm only into control now. That's the whole macro thing of Vayner, right? Like when we buy brands in the future, it's going to run through, it's all control. I don't want to guess.
Are we teasing out our next move? Or?
I've been very public about it.
Grand Slam.
Nathan, it's Gary Vaynerchuk. You're on the Ask Gary Vee show with Matt Higgins.
Hi,
How
Nathan.
are you?
Wow, what a freaking honor. How are you guys?
Good, Nathan.
We're
Where are you
great.
from?
I just mainly was calling because I wanted some advice from two winners. And what had happened is in the last year or so, we had kind of blown up on Facebook Live selling sports cards. And I've kind of gotten a little overwhelmed. We passed the $5 million mark, and I'm starting to have to handle employees and things like that. And trying to take that next step into that $10 million range in 2019, and I'm just a little bit overwhelmed trying to
And Nathan,
figure out.
Nathan, did you? I just want to start thinking while you're talking. Did you say a sports bar?
Baseball cards.
Baseball cards.
Yes.
Okay, this is very exciting to me. Matt, get out of here. Hold on.
Doing $5 million in revenue in baseball cards.
So, Nathan, real quick, where are you located?
I'm in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Right. So we've interacted, right?
That's correct.
Cool.
Yes.
So you're the guy I've DM with a bunch, right? Like you've grown a lot in both at your retail store in the last couple of years, right?
Correct. Yes.
On the back of social media marketing advice, correct?
Yes, sir.
Makes me super happy. Okay, and so now you're saying, shit, this is continuing to work, and I can feel it going to the next level, and with that comes new dynamics, which is I'm not just standing behind the counter of my store and posting on social to the scale I'm at. I've got to bring in new employees, so now I'm getting to more of an HR human game, not just being the marketer and seller of 86, 87 Fleer basketball cards.
That's exactly right. Yes.
And so do you hate it? Because I think one of the things that a lot of people who are watching right now have to understand, it's super okay to be in a transition where you love your craft. It was a small business. You're good at your craft, whether that's, by the way, being a lawyer or doing a landscaping business or selling baseball cards. And that when it grows, it now becomes about people management. And for a lot of people that are artists or good at their craft, I'll tell you, AJ's biggest issue in the growth of Vayner was the unbelievable non-enjoyment in managing people.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you don't like it, the early tastes of it, or you're scared to fuck it up, or what?
Oh no, I love what I do. I haven't set my alarm for the last 2 years.
No. I mean, do you not like the idea of managing people?
That's right. It's not that I hate it. It's just like anything else. I'm just starting out, and I wouldn't say I'm very good at it right now. I'm learning as I go.
When you say you're not good, what mistakes do you think you've made? Say it out loud, because putting it out there is a very important thing. It will help you. What mistakes do you think you've made?
Well, early on, when I gave trust to an employee, when I saw that they really shouldn't have that trust.
Hey, brother, hold on. It's a little muffled. That's why I thought you had a sports bar, not a baseball card store. One more time. What was it?
Early on, I had an employee that I'd given quite a bit of trust to.
Trust.
And when I saw that trust was being violated, I didn't necessarily
Fire.
rein that in immediately. Yes.
Yeah, you didn't. You didn't fire. By the way,
Gary, we commiserate about this all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a nice cliche that nobody actually follows, which is hire slow and fire fast. So the mistake that you're making is a mistake that Gary and I made. I'm making
hire
it
extremely fast and fire slow. I'm
exactly.
literally doing it the
And by
reverse.
the way, agonize it, and as you should. Right? These
But
are
let me-
human.
Nathan, let me say something. When people make fun of me or critique me, or when we're intersecting,
make fun of each other, yeah.
Exactly. I make fun of myself. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
suck. When I do that, there is one thing that, and I think as a small business, you'll appreciate this, brother. Let me give you a humongous piece of advice, and this is for everybody. You have to sleep at night. I am thrilled to give up money every day of my life to feel better when I go to sleep. Now, that makes me not as good of an entrepreneur as I could be, because when you're on the field, you're on the field. Like, it is what it is. But don't overjudge yourself either, and you're going through an evolution. I mean, to me, there's nothing wrong with you trying to find your patterns on how to fire somebody quicker.
And dirty little secret, Nathan, every single entrepreneur and leader goes through the transition that you're talking about. And the biggest lament is that they didn't act sooner when they already knew, because it takes time to get used to that. So I would just say, but nobody talks about that. Everybody talks a big game, like, I dealt with my staff issues right away. Nobody does. So if that's your biggest issue, you're doing great.
What else have you fucked up?
Oh man, there's been plenty of them.
This is
Let me
cathartic.
ask you a question. What are you most
Right.
worried? What are you most worried about going into next year as you continue to grow? Because I think I'm about to make sports cards very culturally popular in 2019, and all of you are going to benefit from it. So you're going to probably do more revenue next year.
Oh, I know, man. I really appreciate the help too. I really do.
Not grandiose at all.
The biggest thing that I fear is we've built this big, what I consider a juggernaut in our industry, and for whatever reason, I have this fear that one day I'm going to log on and there's not 500 people watching. It just goes away, whether that's a war or whatever. Just the economy
So let me
collapses,
tell you, Matt.
anything.
Let me help everybody who's watching.
what's
What
it?
he's done is there's a big thing called pack breaking, which is people buy slots in boxes of cards where you get the third pack that he opens live on Facebook or whatever live platform. And, you can call it a form of gambling, a form of contests. But like literally, for example, there's a famous one that he didn't do, and he's doing a great job. I've seen some of his. But 86, 87 Fleer with the Jordan rookie, people paid $2,000 a pack. And then if you get a Jordan, or in his world, like, what's the most expensive pack break you've done, brother?
We opened $1,500 flawless briefcases. We opened 4 or 5 last night. So
Right.
$1,500 a
Expensive.
box, something like that.
Yeah, so like, and in that box, how many packs are there?
Well, there's only 10 individual cards. It's
Right, so
considered
you
one pack.
sold the slots of the card. So it even goes down to so it was a 1,500 box, and how much? I just want to teach everybody about this whole business. And you sold the individual cards in the pack, like the first card Matt Higgins bought. I bought the third card from the pack. How much was the slot? How much did you sell the slots for?
If it's $1,500 retail, like if I'm selling a box to say you for $1,500, if it's in a group break, we might charge $164.95, so we make an extra $150 for packaging up 10 things. So
By the way, how brilliant is this idea?
Oh, it's super brilliant. It's also super entertaining to watch.
Yeah, no, it's
because
brilliant.
I watch. I'm not even in it. It's
No, I
like
wanna
watching
do it.
sports. I watch pack breaks that I'm not even in, just waiting for the big card
Right.
to be like, or the big card to come out of the pack.
So Nathan, let me ask you a question. If people stop caring to watch you do that, why will they stop caring? When it keeps you up at night.
Nathan, let me give you you said one example. Let me give you a headline. If a war breaks out, you're not going to give a fuck about your pack break business. Like, I love when people are like, Gary, I'm worried a war breaks out. I'm like, if a war breaks out in our country, you're going to be running to the bunkers. And like, I don't think like the last thing you're going to be thinking about, like, fuck, man, there's a war going on. New York just blew up. I don't think 500 people are going to tune into my pack break tonight. Good news. Like, going back to 9/11, everything stopped.
Yep.
Like, if a war breaks out, that's going to be the last fucking
Wait, but
concern
that's
you
the
have.
scenario that he's
That
worried
was the
about?
first thing he
Okay,
said. He
wait, so
goes,
keep going. I assume there's other things other than war that you're worried about.
Really, not much.
All right. So wait. So then, what I hear is you have the typical paranoia of a founder and a business owner who's
100%.
worried. It's all. I still grapple with whether or not I made it or not.
Matt,
right,
Nathan,
like-
real quick to interrupt, I'll give you an perfect example. On the flight from LA this morning, I texted a client of ours. We have a division. We have a thing at VaynerMedia called Vayner Mentors for small businesses. It's kind of like Bain & McKinsey. You pay $100, $200, $300,000 for a project where we give you business advice and marketing advice to take your business to the next level. An incredible young woman out of Florida with a furniture store used us. It's been rolling. Everything's going great. And then this hurricane just hit her.
Right.
So like, it's real too. Like
Nathan,
we could joke about war. It could be a hurricane. Tennessee. I mean, like, I have a whole thesis of earthquakes in Tennessee. Like, you might get hit by an earthquake, Nathan.
And Nathan, the fact that you're worried about this now, doing $5 million a year and a brilliant idea, is why you're going to be at $10 million a year. So don't lament the fact that you have this
Nathan,
paranoia.
I'll tell
Let it
you
fuel
what.
you.
I'll tell you what I'm worried about with your business is that what you're winning on is you're a first mover in it, just like I was in social media. Like, if cards continue to get as popular as I think they're going to, there's going to be a lot of other people breaking packs, and you're going to have more competition. So you need to find another way, the way you found this, to sell sports cards. The hardest thing for people to do is put themselves out of business. I think the thing that I've always done well, which is why I don't always kick the most profit, but I always build very big businesses and I'll win in the end, is whatever's working for me, I start creating other things that could work for me because I don't want to be reliant on one move. Pack breaking is your move right now. You need to triple down on that to go to 10. At the same token, you need to start creating.
Let's do it for storage units so I can watch it on TV live. I'd buy into
But
that.
like, Nathan, you need to like start coming up with something else, like regional shows,
Yeah, like-
or like a podcast, or like an event once a month in your store physically that people will want to travel to from around the country, because who the fuck knows? There's a way to get a $10,000 card if I win X. Like, you're gonna need to add other sizzles. What you're about to do is fall in love with the one sizzle that got you there, which then makes you vulnerable long term. Do you understand?
Yes. we do all that, Gary. We do trade nights on, once a month. We
Good.
do I'm always listening to what you say, content.
Good.
I do kids videos.
Good.
We do Kids Collectors Club every
Good.
month. We do What's It Worth Wednesday, where
What do you do?
everybody
What are you
sends in
doing?
their stuff.
The other thing you can do is maybe take some of the money you're making now, which is different than the kind of money you made before, and maybe you can find the comic book version of you and get into, or the toy version of you, and maybe own 50% of a comic book store and teach her or him your model and watch her buy into her comic book store that's only doing $800,000 in revenue this year. Be the infrastructure for her to do $4 million on the same concept you came up with. You see where I'm going?
Yes.
Diversify.
Hey, before you go, I don't think
Okay.
you said what his business was. Did he? Where
name
we
of
can
it? Go
find him?
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a little plug.
Grand Slam Collectibles in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
All right. I'm going to check it out.
Hey,
Grand
man,
Slam
I
Collectibles.
really appreciate both y'all. Y'all are both an inspiration to the rest of us, man. Y'all keep jet flying, all right?
Are you going to be watching Shark Tank? Matt, what episode do we have a sense of
Sunday,
this?
October 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern.
October 21st, 9 p.m. Sunday, October 21st, 9 p.m. I expect the Vayner Nation to have
It's actually going to be it's going to be one of the best episodes they've ever had. It's a very heart-wrenching story. So tune in. It'll be a special night.
Is it when the guest shark was terrible and they had to kick him off the
That's
set?
part of it, but they edited
Okay.
that out.
Got it. Okay. All right, Nathan, thank you.
Take care.
Matt, October 21st, 9 p.m. I want everybody right now to go into their Google calendars, set alerts. I want viewing parties. I want them to see such a weird spike in Nielsen ratings that they can only give credit to Matt Higgins so that he becomes a permanent or whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea
and
what he wants.
Instagram too, right? So that I
You're
can,
very
I can
hot
answer
now
that
on.
guy.
You, It's been fun to watch you get serious about your.
You know why I like Instagram? Because
Tell me.
Because you have to earn it. It can't be hacked. It doesn't go viral. You have to work. I like that. You have to engage people. You have to talk. It's very organic and natural. I love that. Right? Like you have to put in the effort.
Well, all of them are like that, really.
But I feel like Twitter, things can go viral. I don't know. Instagram, to me at least, feels
Things
like
can
you
go
gotta work
viral.
it.
You just haven't put out viral
Yeah,
content.
Whatever.
Yeah,
So
that-
maybe you're not teaching me. Do I not own a big piece of
You do.
the biggest?
do.
There are 1,000 people here and nobody
Matt,
helps
listen,
me.
Yes, but listen, Michael Jordan had 2 children that wanted to play basketball too. So sometimes it comes
This is
down to
wrong. That's right.
just,
You know why I lost the weight? I didn't lose the weight because of the show.
Listen,
No,
I know
because
you
you
long
would
enough.
make. You
lose-
told me, you said, if you don't lose weight by January 1st, I'm going to mercilessly make fun of you. Right? You did. Remember that? You said you were so fat.
Yeah, it's true. I really knew you had it in you.
I did.
You look
How much
great.
did I lose? How much did I lose?
I don't know. Tell us.
50 pounds.
It looks great.
50 pounds. What happens when you don't eat carbs for a year and you just
No, it
feel
really
yourself
looks
on
good.
ketosis? Thank you.
What do you want to leave everybody here with? We're wrapping up now. What should we have a entrepreneurial kind of crowd watching right now. Like what's a great tidbit or something unique or because so many of them watch me, like what's something that people don't, we referenced earlier, I'm smart, I see the puck, but I think people know that, like what's an insight to me or Chang or somebody else, like what could be a tidbit of like what people aren't thinking about from your perspective?
Well, one about you. You are what you see, which I love about you. Everything that you put out is the same thing that I get when we have our cup of coffee. So it's a credit to you. That empathy is so important. Like everybody I back who's been successful has deep, soulful empathy. So along your way, Nathan was struggling with the fact that he's not maybe firing as fast.
Yeah.
And he's grappling with that. That's probably a byproduct of his empathy. You can hear it in
100%.
his voice. Keep your empathy. You can get to the top while preserving it. And for me,
Matt,
what I
do you
love,
think money and fame expose people or change them?
I always say this to my wife. I want money and power and autonomy so I can be more of who I am rather than less.
Couldn't
So
agree more.
I think all it does is reveal.
Couldn't-
Like
I
I
couldn't agree more.
want to stay in the place of that 16-year-old kid who felt powerless, and I want to use money and power and everything else to inspire and eventually redistribute, make a difference. And so that's who I was before Shark Tank. That's who I'll be. I'll be more of that after.
Matt, question
You
of the
haven't
day.
changed. You haven't changed from the bagel store. Like you don't roll around think I'm Gary V. Like you're. I mean, you can't walk 2 feet with people stop you, which is very irritating, by the way. But you seem to be okay with it. I would never want it.
I think I'll be honest with you. I think if anything, I've gone the other way. Like I'm like just desperately, like to me, I would die if somebody thought that I changed.
Gary and I talk about this topic all the time because I don't know if this could be totally cultivated. You were born with the ability to truly love and listen to yourself and block out the hate, which I admire that. We have these deep, soulful conversations. I take in much more of the criticism. You always say I play more defense. It's just sort of how I'm wired. But what you have is magical. Like to encourage that in people, to say just trust that inner voice and self-love, like that is the key. I don't know where it came from with you. I guess it's in the factory
My mom is
settings.
a beast. And also look, and it's, maybe I was listening to your story carefully. Like, it was really great for me to be an immigrant, a terrible student, not good at sports. My entire foundation of my youth was adversity and people telling me I wasn't.
Yeah.
Thus, like, I didn't grow up in an environment looking for anybody's reinforcement. Like, all I needed was myself. I needed my mom to a degree, and then I was old enough that became me. And so at some level, here's my big thing. And you're this thing for me, like thinking about our conversations. I'm just not interested in the people that boo in the second quarter. Like, for me, this is my thing on judgment or the hate along the way. If those people are right when it goes to 0-0 of the game, then I have to concede that truth. If they were right that I was full of shit, not as smart as I think, like whatever it may be, and it ends, I've had my career and I was not successful. I over leveraged, I went to 0, I had to work for somebody one day. I would just, I don't like shaking people's hands after you lose a game of basketball, but I do it because I lost. And that's the facts.
But that capacity to do that is superhuman.
But
I don't know where it comes from.
But I don't think it has to be, and that's why I'm trying to bring more. Like, it's actually practical.
Yeah.
It's the same reason that I don't get excited. The Jets were beating the Browns 14-0 at halftime the other day. We lost. Like, just because I'm winning, like, back to what Nathan was worried about, just because I'm conceivably winning right this minute, everything could start going downhill tomorrow. And if it does, then I lost. And it goes in a lot of ways. It not only goes professionally, and this is where I don't think people are being thoughtful. I don't just score on the money part. A lot of people that boo us along the way are just talking about money, right? Matt Lauer's brand looks different today than it did a year and a half ago. He was making 20 plus million, 30 million on a show, right? So to me, back to the empathy thing, I know it, you know this way better than most. Very few people know it as well as you do. I will always leaving economics on the table because I don't believe being the greatest entrepreneur of this generation is just the person that made the most money. Like, the reason I think I can beat Zucks and Elon and Sarah Blakely and others is because for me, and I get to judge because that's my life, the greatest entrepreneur of this generation is not only somebody, and I do think you have to succeed. I do think I have to make lots of money because that's the game of an entrepreneur. But the one who brings the most value to the entrepreneurial space, yeah, that's interesting to me.
I mean, you put something out the other day, you posted, I forgot how you worded it, but you said, focus on what you do well because other people will focus enough on what you're not doing well.
That's right.
Was it interesting? But a lot of people take the opposite approach. I got to mitigate my downside. I got to work on what I'm not good at. Because you're all in on what you're
I'll
good at.
tell you why. Because they don't realize whoever they're scared is in control of them is not as in control as they think. The board of directors, the CEO, the 51% equity partner. Yes, in the micro of that moment, definitely not in the macro of life.
All right.
Question of the day. Every guest gets to ask the question of the day. So what question do you, Matt, have for the Vayner Nation? This is an amazing opportunity for you to get some insights.
Okay, explain it. You want to say a little more?
Well, I'm thrilled to now know that you don't watch the show at all. Okay. But when I have a guest, he or she gets to ask a question, and then thousands of comments come on Facebook and YouTube, and some guests that silly things like, what's your favorite color? Others are very strategic because they're trying to actually literally get an insight at that moment of like a trend or a thing, or then some people are just trying to scratch their itch to more opinions on something they're debating within themselves right now.
Okay.
So what's your question?
All right, what's a product that I don't know about that you think I should know about that is going to be massive that's not on the radar right now? I can buy it and help make Gary rich.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
You keep asking questions, we'll keep answering them.